Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. There were many massive things Spider-Man Brand New Day did during the movie that will have major impacts on the future of the MCU, and a lot of the big questions that the film never answers or addresses, so we will break it all down. Addressing the really big elephant in the room, yes, my channel did get hacked last week. It was kind of scary for a couple days, but YouTube is trying to fix stuff. So if you notice weird things with my channel right now the next couple of days, that's why YouTube is trying to fix everything. Many thanks to them for helping. This was not a fun experience. I would not recommend it to anyone, and I do not ever wish to repeat it. Careful for spoilers for the movie if you have not seen it yet, starting with one of the biggest questions, whether or not the bus Jean Grey is on at the end of the movie, which is headed to upstate New York, like it's headed north of New York, is headed to Westchester, specifically where Professor X and the X-Mansion are located. As of this movie, we have not seen any Professor X or X-Mansion in the MCU up to this point, so does one secretly already exist, or is she just heading to hide out in motels in some secret place she finds randomly in upstate New York for the time being until the events of, say, like Avengers Secret Wars or that new X-Men reboot movie in 2028 after the soft reboot in the MCU? All we know about her before the events of the movie is that at least a year ago or so, maybe a little bit less than that, her sister was abducted by William Metzger in Damage Control in the New York City park. This would have been after the events of Spider-Man No Way Home, and they said their mother abandoned them to the foster system when their powers manifested, when their X gene manifested when they were younger, and for several years they were just in and out of different foster homes and eventually wound up here, early 20-somethings in New York City. Presumably when they hit 18, they left the foster system, and they're meant to be about the same age as Peter Parker, and he's about 22 or so based on how long ago Spider-Man Far From Home happened. The movie never actually says what her date of birth is. I think that information on her document Peter sees is redacted or out of frame. It's probably going to be a reference to her comic book birth date, just move forward in the timeline to account for how old she is in present day. Once we started seeing mutants pop up, like Miss Marvel, Namor, then Wonder Man, there were a lot of theories that there were more mutants that we hadn't seen in the MCU, and maybe a version of Professor X already existed, and he was just using his telepathy to hide everyone from view. But I don't think that's the case, based on the way that Kevin Feige has talked about Avengers Doomsday, the way the trailer's going down, and the way they're talking about Avengers Secret Wars in the soft reboot that they're doing to the MCU. Kevin Feige already said that they're using the end of Jonathan Hickman's Secret Wars run to inspire sort of like a soft multiverse retcon of the MCU after Secret Wars. Not like a full reboot, but a little reboot retuning things. And I think that's when a ton of the major core X-Men characters that we haven't seen yet for the X-Men 2028 reboot movie will just pop up, and they'll treat it like they've always been on the MCU, and nobody thinks that it's weird. And they'll just say it's due to the reality warping at the end of Secret Wars when they fix reality, but with a couple quote-unquote minor changes, and the minor changes are just mutants popping up all over the MCU. So if you're taking the end of this movie literally, it would just mean that Jean Grey is headed on a bus to a random hideout in upstate New York for the next couple of years until Avengers Secret Wars happens in the timeline. But Kevin Feige and Marvel fans are winking because the reference is also that she's traveling to her X-Men 2028 solo movie in a couple of years, like she's headed to Westchester to the X-Mansion. It just hasn't appeared there yet. So if you know, you know. Next big question, what was Peter doing for money and how did he pay his rent? Mr. Dickovic needs that rent money. Pay me my rent. I made the joke that he's selling RAM and GPUs that he dumpster dives because of the AI tech crunch ruining computer parts economy around the world. Those two things would make him so much more money than trying to sell pictures of Spider-Man to J. Jonah Jameson. He also has that YouTube channel with videos of Spider-Man, and since Spider-Man is so popular, that would probably be earning him a decent amount of money to pay bills. And he has his phone, so he'd be able to take a lot of selfie videos of himself around the city as Spider-Man. Like, how are you getting these crazy videos of Spider-Man? Certainly not because I am Spider-Man and I'm just taking videos of myself. His apartment in Queens was filled with asbestos, according to his landlord, violated probably every building code in the city, so his landlord probably cut him a steal on it in exchange for not reporting him to the authorities and for cleaning out all the asbestos and fixing it up so that when Peter does eventually leave for some other crappy apartment, he can turn around and sell it for like a crazy amount of money. So he's just letting him squat here for a little while on like a very small amount of money. So his actual living expenses aren't that much. All the tech he gets is dumpster dive from different places. Like, he's not stealing stuff literally, but he's just grabbing it from other places, cobbling stuff together. For people asking if he's still getting money from Iron Man after his death, if Pepper Potts and Stark Industries still has a mystery Spider-Man account that they'll just give him access to, They forgot Peter in the spell, but Pepper Potts would remember Tony Stark's relationship with Spider-Man and all the Spider-Man tech that they built for him, so it is possible that he got a chunk of money during all that, and he's just living off of that as well too, like money left over from his time working with Iron Man. Kevin Feige has said mostly the idea in this movie is that he's friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, ground level, and he's on his own, living on his own steam, so I don't think that he has some giant pile of unlimited cash coming from Stark Industries. If he has any money left over from that, it's probably a very small amount.
The Human Torch was denied a bank loan.
Not all the Avengers got paid. We learned this from Sam Wilson, Captain America. The Human Torch could not get a bank loan. Tony Stark just covered all the Avengers' bills, he didn't pay them salaries, and without the new Avengers base, which isn't meant to be around anymore, it was destroyed, that's gone, Val is the one funding the new Avengers, and they're a completely different entity, and Val is definitely not giving Spider-Man any money. Next really big one, did Spider-Man create the mutant inhibitor collars from the X-Men comics? And that's a pretty easy question to answer. Yes, it'll be Damage Control who takes that to the next level. They basically do that at the end of the movie already. William Metzger says, thanks to Spider-Man, we can control access to your powers now, and they have like his janky version of the inhibitor hooked up to their systems. In future movies, they'll probably just refine that into more powerful, more mobile versions, and many, many more of them that they can just slap on mutants that they arrest. They set up Damage Control in this movie to be very, very anti-mutant in Marvel Phase 7. So Spider-Man is kind of like the Oppenheimer of the MCU right now going into Marvel Phase 7, where he'll look back and feel extreme guilt over the use of the collars in the future, like, sorry guys, my bad, and all the X-Men will probably be pissed at him for it, even though Jean Grey and him sound like they're ride-or-die friends at the end of this movie. Next really big one, what happens to the Hulk at the end of the movie? He said Jean Grey broke something in his mind and now he can no longer control the Savage Hulk's mind inside of him, meaning he can't stop him from emerging when he wants to or when he loses control. So it kind of resets Bruce Banner back to Hulk the way he was before the events of the Incredible Hulk movie, where he could change to Savage Hulk on a dime and was viewed as more of a tragic force of chaos than a hero and treated kind of like a villain by a lot of the other characters. At the end of the movie, the news broadcast just says he was taken to a psych ward, probably a Damage Control prison-controlled psych ward. Even though William Metzger escaped at the end of the movie, Damage Control as a government entity still exists and is still very active. Presumably during Avengers Doomsday, he might still be trapped there to explain why he's not around helping the Avengers fight Doctor Doom, but I do think he will be in Secret Wars as the Hulk, and they'll just use the reality warping on Battleworld that Doctor Doom does at the end of Doomsday to do a version of the Hulk storyline from Jonathan Hickman's Secret Wars run. Maybe we'll see how many Hulks show up. They might tone that down quite a bit. There was some concept art that leaked out earlier with him standing next to Scar, his son, and She-Hulk, so we'll see if they show up during Secret Wars. I'm expecting Secret Wars to be very different from Jonathan Hickman's run, though, with just some Easter eggs for that comic book.
This is my son, Scar.
Speak of the devil, next big one, what happened to his son Scar? He's still on Earth. Where is he? What's he doing? Presumably Bruce Banner has some other Avengers or characters watching over him, checking on him while he's teaching at Empire State University, but maybe Scar is also living on that secret base that Iron Man built for Hulk that we saw during She-Hulk, like a place away from society. My assumption right now is that Scar is probably just stashed on that place. Next really big one though, what happened to William Metzger? They said on the news that he escaped and couldn't be located at the end of the movie. Even though Damage Control still exists, somebody else probably just takes control of it while he's escaped. For the most part, I believe that Marvel wants to bring him back as a larger X-Men villain when they start doing the X-Men movies. Maybe he'll return as part of Damage Control, but the way it make it sound with Damage Control is that Yelena helps the government investigate what Damage Control is up to, all the shady stuff. But the way that Val plays things with the new Avengers, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of that gets swept under the rug over the next couple of movies, and Damage Control still exists, they're still very active, and the government kind of looks the other way, especially when mutants, really powerful ones, start popping up all over the place. Speaking of which, next really big one, why wasn't Punisher arrested when he took Spider-Man to the hospital? He's wanted by the police on numerous charges, including murder. He would be arrested on sight the minute he steps out in broad daylight in this movie. Why hasn't Damage Control arrested him before this? Why didn't they try to arrest him earlier in the movie even, before he even did anything? My early assumption there is that William Metzger, when he was still active, like during the early parts of the movie, was just looking the other way because Punisher was doing some of his cleanup and dirty work, and he didn't mind, because William Metzger was outed as being a super shady person anyway, so he probably wouldn't mind if the Punisher was breaking laws to do his dirty work. He already showed how he had the hand working for him, so I wouldn't be surprised if he was just pissed that he couldn't get the Punisher on his payroll in a legit kind of way. And I think the explanation for the end of the movie at the hospital, too, is that the police and the hospital workers were so sympathetic to Punisher trying to save Spider-Man because they love Spider-Man so much that they just looked the other way briefly, like, we're not going to arrest you right now, but make sure you get gone before we do decide to arrest you. Like, if you stick around here longer, we will definitely throw you in prison, so please get out of here. Next really big one, at the end of the movie, did Ned really remember Peter and his memories from high school of him, or does it have something to do with him having an affinity for magic? Because that was a big deal during No Way Home, is that Ned did have an affinity for magic. He could become a sorcerer if he wanted to someday. Based on the actual text of the movie and what they want you to believe is that Ned was just piecing information together because MJ said that Peter was Spider-Man, so he remembered Peter was Spider-Man when Peter introduced himself as Peter, and he remembered him from the party earlier, so I think it was Ned just putting two and two together, and I do think that his muscle memory was not affected by the spell, even though his actual memories of Peter in high school were affected. Those were rates, like he doesn't remember eating cheeseburgers with Peter or like playing with Legos, he just remembers playing with Legos with someone else. He doesn't remember who that person was. So the reason he probably remembers the handshake is because he remembers doing the handshake, he just doesn't remember who he did the handshake with. So I don't think at the end of the movie that they get their memories back, the spell is still active, they're building new memories, and they remember some things with like missing information from high school, like partial memories that just seem kind of wonky and weird, and now, because of what Peter has told them, like, oh, this is the reality, this is what happened, me changing your memories, they now know that all those weird times, it was Peter, but they still didn't get the actual memories of him in that moment back. Probably another good question too, did Doctor Strange also forget Peter because of this spell? My assumption is that yes, that's kind of the way it works in the comics too, but if Peter went and introduced himself to Doctor Strange and explained things to him, he would remember Spider-Man first, so then he would probably understand what Peter was talking about when he said, we did a spell where we erased my memory from everyone, so Doctor Strange would just clock it immediately and understand. But he still wouldn't get the memories back unless he did another subsequent spell to get the memories back. I'm sure there's a spell that would actually do that too. Peter spends a lot of time with Yelena in this movie, so a big question is when did Peter meet Yelena? When did their relationship start? When did he start getting help from her? My early assumption is that it's a relatively recent thing, and it happened after the events of the Thunderbolts movie when Yelena started living permanently in New York City. Like, they started acting as the new Avengers, so Peter was trying to go to the Avengers for help, and they just happened to be the Avengers at the time. Another really good question is why the new Avengers viewed an Omega-level telepath as small potatoes and not worth their time. Why weren't they clocked in on what was happening with Damage Control and Jean Grey? My early assumption here is because they didn't think that she was a powerful telepath until the end of the movie, so had things continued naturally, like if things had gotten worse, then the new Avengers would have gotten involved, like the Sentry would have gotten involved as well too. For those of you asking too, could Jean Grey mind control the Sentry in the Void character? And the answer is yes, but only after she fully came into her powers. Wouldn't that be terrifying? R.I.P. New York, R.I.P. world. Next really big one was what happened on Staten Island between the Punisher and Spider-Man. My early assumption, because it's not based on any comic book event, is that Punisher was just trying to take down some villains. Spider-Man was also trying to take them down and saw Punisher almost die, saved him, and also tried to stop him from killing whoever the villains were, and that's just led to them meeting each other. They mostly use this as their Budapest, like the Hawkeye Black Widow thing, where you never learn what happened in Budapest till like 10 years later, so maybe they'll just continue referencing it when Punisher crosses over in the Spider-Man movies if they happen in the future. And one of the other big ones is how the Spidey tracker works and is active during the post-credit scene in tracking multiple versions of Spider-Man if they're on Battleworld in that post-credit scene. My early assumption is they'll just explain that Peter went to bed one night in his Queen's apartment, like he just happened to be in his apartment, then Doctor Doom warps reality, so for a second he's still on the MCU Earth, and Doctor Doom warps reality, and right before he does that, on the screen you see the Bifrost scream past frame. This normally wouldn't work, like the app doesn't work like this, so this is just Marvel having some fun in context, like it wouldn't detect the Bifrost screaming past it in the app. You'd have millions of people wondering what would just happen, like what did we just watch here? And at the very end, it detects another version of Spider-Man in outer space after reality has warped and we've gotten to full Battleworld. So the real answer with why the Spidey tracker is still working in this context is because Marvel is breaking the rules of how the Spidey tracker is supposed to work. That's like the technical answer, is they're just having a little bit of fun with the metaphor of the Spidey tracker. The actual Spidey tracker would not work this way. And for those of you asking what happened to the piece of the symbiote left in the No Way Home post-credit scene, it's still in the MCU. They didn't retcon that in Venom The Last Dance. The piece that they retconned in Venom The Last Dance was in the Venom universe, not inside the MCU. So the piece of the symbiote is still inside the MCU, but I think that Kevin Feige mostly wants you to forget about that scene so that they can wait to give him the symbiote in Avengers Secret Wars in some different way. Like they'll have their own version of him in the symbiote saga play out, but it'll be some Easter eggs for the classic 1980s Secret Wars when he originally got the symbiote in the comics. There's 1,000 other questions that the movie brings up but never answers, so I'm sure there's a bunch that I didn't get to in this video. If you do have any that I didn't address, just write them below in the comments. Everyone post all your reactions in the comments below. I know there's going to be a bunch of X-Men questions for the next year until they actually film that new X-Men movie, but hopefully we will learn some more at D23. My next big video will be for House of the Dragon Episode 7, but I'm still working on more Spider-Man, more Avengers Doomsday, and more Secret Wars videos. I'll try to get those out as fast as possible, and hopefully YouTube will just work out all the kinks with whatever was happening with that hacker earlier this week, and everything should be fine. Everybody click here and here for all those videos. I'll update the links as soon as I post all those. Thank you so much for watching, and